Oh yeah, we're live. It went live immediately. It didn't even caught me behind the scenes screwing around. Hey everybody, welcome to Game Audio Hour number 122. I don't know where to look. I'll tell you why in a minute. A weekly podcast where we discuss all things game audio, from creative ideas to latest techniques, project experiences, to audio secrets. Here's where you find your in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. Hey, Mike and Vince.
Yo,
how's it going?
Very good. I'm sorry that I'm looking down. I have a new gift. It is the Slate Raven MTI touchscreen. So I'm seeing you guys on it. And so it makes it very difficult to look straight in the camera, where before a regular monitor, the camera, the webcam's right in front of it. So when I'm actually looking at you guys on the screen, I'm looking through the webcam. But now I'm looking down.
well, you're looking down on that screen, but you're sounding really up. You sound really good right now. What's that? What's that new mic there?
Thanks, man. I got an RE20 because every studio should have one.
It's a classic.
I have no idea what it sounds like. You're hearing it for the first time. This is the first time I've plugged it in.
Wait a minute. You haven't even heard yourself through that?
No.
Oh, it sounds great. As soon as this episode's over, just go to YouTube and check it out because you sound fantastic.
Thanks, man. I'm sure you have an RE20, don't you?
Let's see. I used to. I think I still have an RE320, which is their slightly cheaper one that actually sounds a little bit different anyways. But I haven't used that in a long time. Honestly, I like this Heil mic, and there's a couple other voice actors that I work with, and they like this thing too. So
you can't beat the Heil. It's amazing. Mike, what mic are you using?
Well, I've got the high-end built-in mic that's integrated in my Bose headphones mic. So I smile at your RE20. It's pretty, but it's no tiny quasi-lavalier integrated into a cable next to the power cord mic like I'm using.
Only a mic would be able to use that kind of mic, though. It's reserved for the very special mics in the world.
That is where the term comes from, yes. Most people know that.
It's been misspelled for years. It's typically M-I-K-E, but for some reason, some idiot back in the 1800s started spelling it M-I-C. Doesn't make sense, does it?
No, indeed.
Is this joke just dying on the vine? Are you guys not giving me anything?
I wouldn't use present tense for that.
So I have to open a new bottle. This show brought to you by Abalor.
ooh.
Abenad. Have you ever had that? It's pretty good scotch.
Man.
It is a fresh bottle. I think one day we might get a scotch endorsement. We should, shouldn't we?
Hey, I would not mind.
So,
AA.
yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. So, I had we had the Black Friday sales, and I had so many thoughts about show topics that I threw them into our chat, and you guys were like, yes, all of them. So one of them, so here are the topics that came to mind for me, because I think I have reached my limit. How many string libraries is too many string libraries? Because Black Friday, I think, took me over I think I have a problem, is what I'm saying. I think I have to go to meetings to be released from the string library addiction. So how many, it doesn't have to be string libraries. It's just, do I keep saying library? Library. Doesn't have to be a string library, but how many of a type are too many? What Black Friday sales did you guys go for? And also, I was listening to an old sound design I did to try to get a job. I did not get the job. The person got the job, well deserved, very talented fella. But I was re-listening to the demo I sent them, and I really love it. And have you ever done that? That's the last question, is send something off that you're like, you know what? I think I did a pretty good job. And it makes me feel better that nothing makes you feel better about not getting the job. But imagine, it filled me with a sense of confidence about what I'm able to do, even though I didn't get the job, because it's a good sound design. And, it was, I think, maybe up there in the levels where I was, competing with the big guys for a second. And I was pretty proud of it. And I was just curious if you guys have any experience like that. You want to start with that?
Sure.
Okay, go.
Kyle, you may remember there was an occasion where you and I teamed up on a demo for a project. It was a kid's game, and I did some music, and you put together some sound design based on the screen. For those of you out there, I do very light sound design work, and if anything scary comes, I usually try to find someone who knows what they're doing and team up, and someone like Kyle. And we put together this joint demo, and we totally didn't get the gig at all. But the music that I wrote, which were just kind of these fun little boppity synthy kid things, have served me very well as demo tunes since then. And they've contributed towards my getting other projects that were stylistically similar in the future. And so that was a happy anecdote. And there's something to be said, I think, for taking, even if you have to write a custom piece, a custom cue, a spec cue, something like that, if time permits, there's something to be said for really digging and doing a good job, because you are expanding your library of cues, or demo material for future projects, assuming you don't already have all your bases covered in that respect. And the advantage of doing it this way is you've got a deadline, you've got a motivation, you're trying to impress a particular client for a particular purpose, which is better than just kind of sitting around in your studio and thinking, I should just write some kazoo and bagpipe war music, because who knows, that might happen. The motivational forces of the deadline are still there with you, so you can get something done under a short time frame. So that anecdote hopefully will be of some use. On the other hand, if you have every demo cue you ever feel you need to write, you may discard this advice.
That's great advice, actually. What about you, Vince?
Oh, man. I totally agree with what Mike just said. Although I feel like I'm the type, when I look back at many of those old pieces that I did for gigs that I didn't get, it actually makes me a little sad. I just think, wow, why don't I do more of that? Or, man, that was actually a really good track. I should do more of that, except I'm not doing it right now. And this is kind of a really dumb sort of sob story, because I am pretty filled up on my plate. So why should I be worrying about that stuff? But this is kind of more to the whole, I don't know, personal self-actualization type thing of, how can I grow as a musician? And I do actually like looking back at those things that I explored before, realizing, oh, that stuff, that space was actually worth exploring there. It wasn't just a gig. That was actually a good piece that can contribute to my identity, or could contribute even more if I want to keep on going down that path. So, sometimes I actually do look back on that stuff and I think, okay, I should carve away some time so that I could go on this path for a little bit.
Nice. But no moments where you said, oh shoot, what was the thought I had? Oh, never mind. It just left me.
Like bitterly shaking your fist and saying, why didn't I get the gig? Was that the angle you were?
Yeah, but I had figured out a nicer way to say it, because the way that was in my head was not as nice. So, and then I lost that nice way, and I thought, okay, my mom's saying, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything else. No, I mean, we all live with those rejections, don't we? I mean, that's part of being in audio, is to try for something and not achieve it. But I think it's so important to not let yourself get down if you didn't get the gig. It doesn't mean that you're bad at the job, or that the person that got the gig is better than you. Although, in the case that I'm giving as an example, the person is definitely better at sound design than I am. But it was just really nice to be honest, I can now compare it, because the game that the company was going to make had I got the job is now, you can hear it now. You can hear the game. And so you can hear the sound design that they selected for the game, and then compare it back to the sound design demo I did. And I thought, oh, it was really, really quite similar in some ways. And so I was pretty proud. So I guess what I was getting at is, well, there's that, just to let everybody out there know that we're all humans. Do you shake your fist at it, like you said, Mike, and go, man, I should have got that. I've now heard what they released and I did a better job. But, maybe do you reevaluate? Do you say, maybe I didn't get it because of some other thing? Maybe my email communication wasn't as friendly or something. I mean, what do you do?
I think there have been a couple of cases where I've tried to do a post-mortem and just review what I had sent. some of my decisions might have been made in the heat of the moment. And if you've got a short period of time to get in some demo materials, you may enter a weird psychic speculation loop where you're trying to imagine what a hypothetical group of people are thinking or looking for. And if you don't discipline yourself, it's easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole indefinitely and have this entire, you might project what it's like if some imagined people are listening to your music and then they hear something that's a flaw and then they throw it away. And then perhaps you change the set of cues you're sending because you think, I've got to cover this kind of music, XYZ, so they know I can do that. So there is a kind of paralysis that you can get into if you overthink it too much. So sometimes, that was a very long way of introducing what I was actually going to say, which is sometimes after failure has been accomplished, and suddenly there's no pressure anymore, I will sit back and say, okay, let's see, what did I send them? Let me listen to my demo selections 1 through 10 and imagine now the pressure's off, what is someone going to think when they listen to this? What are they going to infer about me? And on a couple of occasions, I've been able to give myself constructive criticism. And yes, on other occasions, I've shaken my fist and said, those fools have no vision.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, especially the time constraints typically. You got to strike while the iron's hot. How long are you actually giving yourself to work on, I don't know, a couple of cues or, a couple bits of sound design? You're trying to cram things. Well, usually when I'm working on trying to get a gig, it feels like I'm rushing. It feels like a sprint for me. So there's really not much time to actually, really think about what it is that you're actually doing. And then give it a few months and you look back at it and said, oh, that was a good decision. Oh, I did that. Oh, did I actually send them that? Did I really mean to send them that cue with that horrible line or this particular choice for sound design for, I don't know, for a particular weapon? Why would I do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and time can actually reveal a whole lot of things. So it's always nice to look back on those things and try to evaluate and move on from there.
Speaking of time too, when you do demos for gigs, you have such a limited amount of time to do something that you would have more time to do if you were doing it at the job. Like you have a week to do all the sound for this thing, but that if you were there and this thing was part of the game, you would probably get more time than just a week to get that out.
Oh yeah, that's really true, and
yeah, so that makes
that's
it really
something
difficult.
Yeah, and I've been lucky. I'll go ahead and say lucky because I'm not sure if I have a skill or knack for it. But a few times I've basically said, "Hey, this is what you want me to do right now. Let me show you what could be done if we entered this type of relationship." And then I lay it out to them. I show them, well, this is how the iterative process could work to your benefit. Um,
So
and,
true.
yeah, I've gotten
So
lucky
true.
for that.
Another thing I think is important to mention is in this specific, which it wouldn't be polite of me to name the game or the company, but in this specific example that I'm talking about, the company was so good. They were so nice that I think it's important that people know you're under the gun to get a demo in. And I was doing a 5.1 mix on this demo and I messed up my 5.1 mix. I used some stereo files and panned them and then was like, oh, you don't use stereo files when you're doing 5.1. That's stupid. And I was under the gun. So I hit the timer and I just said, I got to let it go. I made a mistake. I was moving too fast, whatever happened. And I sent it off and I don't remember, this was quite some time ago. And they obviously listened to it and noticed that the surround space was all messed up. And they wrote me back and said, hey, take a couple of days and fix that and then resubmit it. And I thought, what? It's a demo for a position at a game company. I've already made my first mistake. And our brains think, that's it. I made a mistake, so I'm done. But I wonder if game companies or any company like this that you're doing some sort of demo work for are understanding of the mistakes that you may make because you are under a really tight deadline to get it done. Firstly, and then secondly, if the mistake is like egregious, then of course I feel that you would disqualify yourself. Like, give us a 5.1 mix, and you hand them a mono mix. They're going, So, I wonder if I just wanted to mention though that to those people who are going for sound design gigs or composition gigs and they know they're under the gun, that just good communication and patience can pay off in the end. And the people that you're submitting it to, they want to like what you're sending them. They really do. They want to stop looking for somebody for this position. They want to go, oh, this is it. I like this. And if they feel that, at least in this case, this example, I feel that I was close enough that they said, just take a couple of days and fix that and then resubmit it. And I was very grateful for that, even though I didn't get it.
Yeah, I know. Actually, it's true. Sometimes it's hard to believe that game companies are made up of, some actually really caring, compassionate people. I mean, I have been in some relationships with companies where it was just I'm throwing files over the wall, and okay, they sound good, and they didn't really care much about me at all. But it is nice actually to be able to talk to someone and they understand what you're going through. And I know when I've been trying to make hiring decisions, yeah, absolutely. I want to be able to fill this gig as quickly as possible. So, and if someone is close, I want them to have a chance to go that last meter in that 100-meter race.
Mike, have you had a similar experience where you were given a little more time for some demo material?
I don't think I've ever had an analogous experience to the one you described, though that does sound very appealing, to know that they heard something in your they heard something in what you submitted that were motivated them to give you another chance to resubmit. May I have such good fortune, should I make a similar error. There was, however, something that Vince touched upon that I wanted to spin out into a little bit of advice for perhaps newcomers to the game audio world or beginners. And Vince touched upon the idea that, in the heat of preparing something for another company, he wrote something that he really thought represented his own personal artistic taste. Vince, am I reading you correctly on that?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that, combined with the fact that you're best prepared to demo something when you've already written the music, when it's something you wrote previously that you had time to really develop, and it wasn't in a heated rush to meet a deadline. So if you combine these two ideas together, the idea that it's nice to have something already written with the fact that it's nice to touch upon musical areas that speak to you personally, in addition to being commercially viable, you get the following suggestion, which is composers during downtime are well advised to write spec cues, demo cues, for no particular purpose other than their own artistic gratification. Maybe you want to do a big FRPG one day, so you sit there and you write battle music or dwarf music or battle dwarf music or whatever, or you want to do big sci-fi things, you whip out all the drums, whatever, just within the realm of what's commercially viable, there's probably going to be one or more corners that really just resonate with your soul. If you've got nothing else going on, write some cues in that little area of Venn diagram overlap, because one day a gig may come along that requires that kind of music, and you're going to have a whole arsenal of cues already written into which small modicums of your soul have already been poured. Wouldn't it be nice just to pull those out rather than to kind of frantically write something racing for the deadline, and then afterwards going, wow, that was a lot of fun. I really like that kind of music. So that's my long-winded advice for people on how you can demo better and use your downtime better and get a little musical gratification out of your downtime.
That's very good advice, and leads right into when you're doing those downtime scores, how many string libraries should you own?
Wow.
That was a good segue.
That's one of my better ones.
Okay.
Should we start like a group? Like, what would we call it?
I think you're looking for the word intervention. Yes. we should have an intervention.
It's gotten pretty bad.
I'm sure the chatties would agree with this.
It's ridiculous. I mean, the last two I bought, I didn't even listen to the demos online. I was just like, oh, that's probably pretty good. That's just stupid. What the hell was I thinking? And then one I bought off of Mike's advice. This is just, it seems so rude in some way. So I apologize to you in public, Mike Shapiro. I go and buy a library I've never heard without a problem. And then Mike Shapiro gives me a suggestion for a library, and I vet it for like 3 days of questions. Will they have this? What articulations? Will these articulations cross over? But I don't know why I did that. I just, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Well, the one that Mike had suggested, which was, oh, Mike, do you want to say it? I can't think of it right now.
The ATO.
Adagio?
The Adagio library.
Right. So I went to purchase it and noticed that I could do a bundle, because it was Black Friday, so you can get a bunch of stuff. And I thought, oh, I'll get the whole bundle that has everything in it. And then realized when I was going to purchase that I actually have put in my cart the Agitato bundle, not the Adagio bundle. So then that was my first question, was like, well, oh wait, no, the Agitato doesn't have the strings you're recommending, right? And so we had that conversation. And then I realized that then I saw the point system. They didn't make it easy. That matrix of, we're going to come out with something new, and if you own some of our stuff, you get a discount on the new thing. That just hits me right in the OCD place. And I start comparing all of the combinations of things that I can buy now to get the cheapest discount, or the biggest discount, when I upgrade to their bigger thing later. But then it dawned on me that their bigger thing later, Anthology, is not going to have all of the articulations that I'm going to get by buying the libraries that they have on sale right now for Black Friday. So like if you buy these strings over here, the Adagio strings, even though Anthology will include a lot of the articulations from Adagio strings, it won't include all of the articulations, if I'm correct. Am I correct?
You are.
So then that ends up being a thing of, well, do I even want Anthology? And if I don't, should I just get the Adagio bundle? So Vince, this is how I tortured Mike. I recommend it.
Wow.
He handles it really well, but if you really want to torture Mike, just go down this rabbit hole. By the way, wax is very difficult to get off. If this were medieval times, I would not be drinking, because I would starve to death because I can't get the wax off of there.
In college, I was a cognitive science major and took a number of courses on the subject of decision making. And I do not feel that I was prepared for the dark and brutal reality of what the human mind actually does when trying to make decisions. So thank you for that cross-section of a mind in the throes of terrible string library purchasing anguish.
Well, yeah, humans are really bad at making decisions, which is why I just rely on simple heuristics in order to allow me to move efficiently through life. Ooh. And to that, I purchased very few things during Black Friday. And actually, to your original question about string libraries, I can tell you I only have 5 string libraries currently installed on my machine.
What are
the first 2 are my relatively recent ones, which come from the same company. So Cinematic Strings 2.0 was recently followed up with Cinema Studio Strings, which was the one big software library package that I got this year during Black Friday. Before those 2, I also have Sinful Orchestra, which is just, in its old weird category. Kirk Hunter, which is older orchestra, and AAS Studio Strings, which is their physical modeling type string synthesizer. So I actually don't have that many. I kind of have a not exactly well-rounded, but it has a couple of different options, and they have very drastically different sounds from each other.
Now, are these just for sketching with, or are you actually releasing audio in the games using these sounds?
Yeah, this is through Final Production.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about putting a list together? This is for both you and Mike, of here are my favorite libraries.
I don't know. I mean, for me, with those string libraries,
it would be cool to see, like, by game. Like, here is, I don't know, let's just name a game, because I don't want to actually tie you guys to actual game commitments, but just game A, and here's the template I had, and here are the libraries that I used. Game B, here is a different template.
Now that is kind of embarrassing, because I would just have a whole bunch of stuff that's old Miroslav. I used Miroslav for everything for a solid decade.
That's
just from the old Akai samples, because I had V sampler and it could load Akai samples, and I was able to purchase those Akai samples for dirt cheap. And after that, I got the IK multimedia version of Miroslav's library, which was a little bit upgraded. And between those two, I did about a decade worth of game scoring.
Wow. Did you find it very difficult to get them to sound good, or did they sound good out of the box?
I mean, they didn't sound realistic, but they sounded good.
Yeah.
Which is really different. This whole sense of, what sounds good and what sounds realistic, and
That's a
there's,
great point.
just for me and my particular workflow, those things were actually really simple. With the old Akai stuff, we didn't even have key switching. It was just, okay, I'm just going to load this patch, this patch, this patch, and I might have to do more than 32 channels worth of stuff. So I just keep all these articulations loaded.
Gotcha.
But it worked, and it sounded good. And actually, I've been very reticent to add on to that, because my workflow is this very precious thing to me. And I know that all of these other things that are out there, they have really drastically different workflows. When some library says, oh, you could do this, you could do all these things with key switching and CCs and whatnot. And I'm looking at that and thinking, I'm going to have to change my workflow so bad if I'm going to put this into my template. And that immediately makes me not want to grab it. So, yeah, I just recently got Cinematic Studio Strings, which I knew was going to be a slight change in workflow, but not a huge amount, because I had worked with its predecessor, Cinematic Strings 2.0. And I also liked the particular sound that it was going for, which was a smaller string ensemble compared to a big Hollywood symphonic sort of sound.
I want to ask Mike a question. I want to get some of the stuff going on in the chat. We have a lot of great questions out there in the chat. But Mike, when you're buying a new library, why do I say library today? It's driving me crazy. Library.
I think you need the nuclear option.
Don't know what's going, and it's just a sip. It's not that strong. So when you buy a new library, are you digging in deep enough to see if it's going to change your workflow?
I try to integrate new libraries gradually and organically. So when I get a new library, I'll do a quick pass through the whole thing, and I'll take note of any sounds that seem really useful. And then a cue comes along that seems to be compatible with one of the new sounds, which hopefully is better than whatever it replaced. I'll try to use it experimentally, having my old fallbacks on hand in case I run into some problems with the interface or I don't really understand the key switches. I found that's the easiest way to go, because if you just sit and play with samples or articulations out of context, everything sounds good, everything's fun. Yay, that's a staccato. It's fun to play staccato on the keyboard. You need to be in the thick of writing something for real to really know if a sound's going to work out. So I gradually incorporate them, and maybe if I'm not under a tight deadline, I might try 2 or 3 different legato lines and see which one sounds best.
That makes sense. I'm just grabbing. I'm not really thinking. But when I write stuff like the stuff that I've sent you, it's almost always the same 2 or 3 libraries that I'm using. So why do we buy new libraries? In the hope of finding some gem in there? Are we disappointed in what we're hearing, and that's the temptation?
I think if you do buy a new library, it should offer something you don't already have, obviously. I guess you can, if you feel a little sick of your existing palette and just want to add a new color, I guess I could understand that as well, just to keep the creative inspiration going. But generally, we expect the state of the art to move forward bit by bit. So occasionally, you'll find some new development in the realism of a string library that's worth attention. I know when the first legato articulation strings started coming out, Vienna was early aboard that train, and Hollywood strings was another big step forward. That was really interesting, because now we had access to a kind of realism in legato lines that we didn't previously. But that having been said, sometimes the string library will just have an aesthetics to it that you might like. Like I've championed 8dio strings on the show just because I think they sound great. They are a pain in the ass to use. The sin may be atoned for in the aforementioned anthology release, and we can talk about that. But I just love the sound. There's a kind of sweetness and richness to them that doesn't sound as gratingly fake as most string libraries. So even though they don't offer anything technically that I didn't already have, there's no crazy new articulation. It's just a flavor that I really like, so I justified getting those, and I end up using them quite a bit.
I will say that the purchases that I've been making have been to match other people who have libraries that I respect. You know, they're doing great music out of those libraries. And then also, Mike, when we worked on that project and you were saving my horrible scores by orchestrating them and making it sound like I knew what I was doing, it was like, what are you using, Mike? And you were like, I'm using this, this, and this, and this. So then I ran out and bought this, 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 and this, so that I could make it easier for you to make me sound good.
It's funny you say that, because I seem to remember saying, don't buy the agitato, buy the adagio. Adagio sounds great. Agitato is a very specialized supplementary library, and then you ran out and disobeyed my instructions. So it's such a funny thing that you're saying this now.
I did buy the agitato, or no, wait, the adagio strings, but then I also bought the agitato because together you end up in this level for anthology that gives you a really good discount. So if you got adagio strings by themselves, your discount was, say, $100 on anthology when it comes out. But if you bought adagio strings and the agitato library, this is going to drive me nuts. If you bought those two together, you ended up with an $80 discount. So it was a change of only $20. And it afforded all of these articulations that they weren't going to put in anthology. But the reason I went with agitato bundle and the adagio strings is because the agitato bundle was marked like 70% off, whereas the adagio bundle was barely discounted at all. So I got the adagio violin and the agitato bundle, and then together ended up getting a decent discount on anthology whenever that comes out. That's why I did it. I'm not just some rebel. So,
Kyle, how many string libraries do you have?
Oh, so East West's old stuff, Hollywood stuff. Now there's adagio strings and the agitato and Sam's stuff and Native Instruments, like early stuff, which, by the way, I love that early string library they did. It was recorded out of that studio. Is it Hansa Studios in Germany where they did all the disco records?
Nothing
Anyways.
you are saying is giving me confidence.
I mean,
no, you don't want to use it on your stuff, Mike, but it's great when you're like padding some rock tune with some strings, because it just has the sound. And you were talking about sound with the 8dio stuff. It has a fantastic sound that harkens back to the old disco strings that were behind, you know, some of the hits from that time. And you don't have to use it you don't have to be writing disco to use it, but it sounds great. And they did a really good job of capturing that kind of essence. But then anyway, I think they call them Session Strings, and then Session Strings Pro. And then the one I bought that I didn't even listen to was the new Native Instruments string library. Hey, I think I said library.
There are symphonic strings.
Yeah, and then there's emotive strings, and I think I got like 5 different string libraries from Native Instruments, but that's mostly because I have Complete, and a lot of those came with it. But anyway, I think I've named all of them, and we're up at like 10 if I had to guess. No, that doesn't count, because then there's the 0G stuff, which has got all the cool, like, and I think Mike even liked the like cello. What's it called? Do you remember,
I know which one you're talking about? Yeah, the solo cello articulations and loops. It has like a quasi-religious name.
Yeah.
What's the name of that one? This is a branding failure, guys. If we can't remember the name of a library of yours that we own, you came up with a bad name.
So if I had to guess, I'm going to throw like 3 of those on there. So I've probably got around like 13 different just strings. Don't get me started on like drums, percussion, stuff like that.
Spiritoso.
That actually doesn't. Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, Spiritoso.
And there was the Perpetuo. but that's not strings. And then they had another one other than Spiritoso. What was the third one?
Animato?
And that's it.
That was the flute library.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I think Perpetuo has the flutes and Animato has like cellos. Spiritoso, cello. I don't know. You're probably right because my memory is terrible. But I don't know what 13. That's not too bad.
That's not horrible, actually.
So you
I was
guys aren't
expecting
showing
you
up here
to.
with like some people and saying, Kyle, we need to sit down and have a conversation with you.
Nah, I actually don't think that that's too bad.
If I started
But-
throwing in like Juno 6 string libraries, is that like going to take you over the edge?
That doesn't really count.
Yeah.
They do too. Because when Mike was saying how he loves, or no, it was you, Vince, who was saying there's a difference between sounding like something and actually sounding good. I love those old, like, what do they call them? PCM string libraries. I think that a lot of the keyboards call them PCM strings or something.
Oh, sure. Like I actually really liked Roland's orchestra expansions for the JV and XV machines because they sounded good and they mixed really well with a lot of stuff and with each other. They were just easy to use. You could get them sounding good. Was that a thumbs up from Mike?
I loved those libraries. I used the oboe on the JV orchestral expansion. I think could hold its own today in a mix. There was a lot of care and love in those libraries, and I certainly made, much like you and Miroslav, I just made a lot of use of those for a very long time.
Yeah.
The first orchestral project I ever did was a play, and it was all JV 1080 strings and orchestral sounds. That was a great way to learn too. Really, it was so easy to write back then too, wasn't it? You just like, that was your violin. Like, all right, I'm gonna write a violin line. You didn't have like 13 libraries of violins yet to figure out which one you like the sound of, which is why I think it's important to hold on to templates, because once you have, you will over time, people who are watching and listening to the show, you will over time start to accumulate all of these libraries, and you're eventually going to have to make a decision. You know, put together a template from like 1990, like Vince's, that you're never going to move away from. And sorry, Vince, I threw you under the bus.
Wow.
Just kidding. No, Vince sounds amazing. So who am I to complain?
I mean, the funny thing is,
come up with some sort of collection that you like, and then just iterate from there. Sorry, Vince, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and say I do not sound amazing. No, okay, let me just put in the details there. My stuff, I'll go ahead and say it does not sound amazing immediately. And it actually takes, I think, too much, perhaps an inordinate amount of work on my part in order to get it sounding amazing, because I tend to use libraries that require me to put in way too much work. That is part of my workflow. I am a glutton for punishment. And so I want to use physical modeling. I want to use Wallander and sample modeling, and I want to use my EWI everywhere because I want to do things the hard way. And I sometimes listen to these libraries, and there's a part of me that thinks, how difficult would it be to get this library sounding good with an EWI? How difficult would it be for me to get this sounding good with the way that I want to work with stuff, which is not necessarily the easiest or most efficient way to do things. If anything, it is an extremely inefficient way to do things. But I feel like it's a combination of me learning and growing as a musician while also doing what I need to do, which is get the work out there and done for my employers.
But you are, by doing it that way, you are flexing that muscle. I don't know how many times I have started to think, especially with mixing, when you come into habits, like in Pro Tools, you can set favorite EQ and favorite compressor, right? And I refuse to set that in the preferences, because I don't want to just get tied into just constantly throwing that same EQ and that same compressor on everything. It slows down my workflow, but I'm exercising that muscle. So I am trying different EQs and just keeping myself from falling into that hole of the same old thing over and over and over, especially if I have to defend plugins, which I'm not crazy about defending, because I'm not there yet. I know so many people say it's ridiculous at this point. They sound the same. or they sound close enough to be viable. I don't know. There's just, I can't honestly say that my ear is hearing a difference between, say, an LA2A that's a plug-in and an LA2A that's a piece of hardware. And it's because I don't have the time to like compare those to each other. But conceptually, I know that they've got to sound different. One is electricity and one is ones and zeros after electricity. It just, one is snapshots of settings and one is actually something you can turn. And I think to myself, one ages, one does not. And I think to myself, there's no way these things sound the same. But with that in mind, I still use so many plugins because it's, you know, I don't want to buy a Moog for every channel that I could possibly have to use one on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I throw it in there. Now on top of that, the next stage is back to what I was saying about, I don't want to set Moog as my favorite EQ. I want to use a different EQ constantly. And so I don't set those. So I think it's important, like you were saying, Vince, to exercise that muscle, to make it difficult on yourself, if that's what you want to call it. Because if you fall into that hole, that dangerous hole of just phoning it in and using these same plugins, that's my opinion completely. I think it's a dangerous thing. So on that note, let's talk about Black Friday. Let's thank iZotope. Thank you, iZotope, for, I'm going to look right at the camera. Thank you, iZotope, for hosting the show. You take care of us. We appreciate it. Thank you so much. Next weekend, guys, next week, do you guys want to do the giveaway for December?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Next week, we're going to do the giveaway for December. And so go out to iZotope, check out everything that they're doing out there, especially, what's it called? Neutron. That's blowing my mind. Just that masking is blowing my mind because I visualize now these frequencies that are fighting with each other. Oh my God. That's a real relief. Thank you very much. That's something I'm not going to do the old-fashioned way any longer. That's just foolish.
It is a pretty cool tool.
Unbelievable. And it's all right there. And just, I mean, gosh, how many times have you heard a mix that's muddy? And now they're going, here's the mud. So pick one. That's okay. I'll make it simple. You can't make it any easier than that. I'll pick one. So well done, iZotope. Thank you for taking care of us. Now on to Black Friday deals. So I went crazy. The Slate Ravens, which, by the way, I hope my daughter isn't watching the show because this is what Santa got me. And if she watches the show, then she'll figure out that Santa's not a thing. Although Santa is a thing, I think Santa is just the giving spirit that exists. I think it's a beautiful thing. But anyway, they had a killer deal on these slates. So I went nuts. I went Slate everything. I mean, Steven Slate should come here and kiss me because I spent so much damn money on Slate stuff. So I got the everything bundle, and I got, if there is any plugins that I use more than any other, hands down, it's the Slate stuff. It's just I mean, it sounds good, but also it's just right there. The other one is Sound Toys. I use the crap out of Sound Toys. So I like the idea of being able to load something. I see a rack full of gear and I just do it, put in there what I want. So Slate everything, these Slate Ravens, which, by the way, next show, I'm not going to use this. I'm not going to look at, I don't like this looking down business. The string libraries we talked about. Hey, I got a new mic. A mic tech mic that comes with Mike, could they ever mic a mic more miking than Mic Tech? It's Mic Tech. If Mike Shapiro had a Mic Tech mic, I would explode. I would go back in time like I was putting instant food in a microwave. That's ridiculous. What'd you say?
Well done.
Which Mic Tech mic did you get?
It's not here yet, but it comes on like an arm. It's a USB microphone. And it comes with this like heavy duty arm with a mixer at the base of the radio arm. So it's kind of cool. I was like, well, this would be very convenient because, you know, there's a lot of things that we want to do on the show that we don't do, like introduce a live instrument while we're doing the show. And the one of the reasons I don't do it is because I'd have to have over on the side where my cheese grater is, I'd have to set up a mixer, which I've done in the past, and keep it on the table. It's just, I don't know. There's a limit to how much effort I want to put into the show. I can't believe I just said it. I love you all. But if I had the mixer right at the base of this radio-like stand and the Mic Tech mic is right there, I was like, I got to do that. That's pretty simple. So these, there's something, a couple of amplifiers I got myself. I've always wanted a Roland Jazz JC120. Do you guys know the sound of a JC120?
I don't think so.
It's
Yeah, I think you
pretty
actually
amazing.
mentioned this a while ago.
It's an old. I mean, they're still making it, but I don't like the new ones. Like I like the old ones. And so I picked that up. Just a bunch. I just went nuts. What'd you guys go nuts on? And tell me while I read the chat on what they went nuts on.
Oh man, I didn't go too nuts. Actually, besides the string library that I just mentioned, I also got 2 bits of hardware, which technically aren't Black Friday purchases because they didn't have any specific sale for Black Friday. But I finally picked up a cheap VR headset in the form of the Google Daydream VR.
Nice.
So this was free because
Oh.
I am the owner of a Google Pixel. And
What
lo
is
and
that?
behold, it's their new phone, which is actually really good. It's about as good as an iPhone, almost, kind of. You know that whole war between Android and iPhone. I got to admit, Apple knows what it's doing when it comes to making a very smooth, sort of elegant experience on the phone. This Google Pixel is really good, and it actually comes close to making that sort of smooth experience. If you bought it, you also get this Daydream VR headset.
Wow.
So I got
Now, how much-
that.
Did the headset influence your purchase, or was it just a thing?
No, it was
Like,
actually just a nice gift. I was looking through my emails the last 2 weeks, and I could get a Daydream VR headset if I use this code. So
Gotcha.
cool. Free shipping and all that. Nice. And then I got myself a new laptop computer, which is actually a tablet PC, because I am a big fan of using a pen for my various audio and other productivity tasks.
Nice.
So, you got your Steven Slate. I've got my tablet PCs. I've been using tablet PCs forever for work in DAWs and trying to write music with some of the new generation of pen-enabled music notation software. It's been a fun ride.
Nice. Yeah, and when you're, I'll ask maybe for another show. I got so many questions about notation. Mike, tell us. You bought me a new car.
I did, but then I returned it because I wanted to instead get some of the aforementioned 8DO string libraries. And the reason, ladies and gentlemen, I did this is because, well, first of all, 8DO is a very prolific soundware developer. But
that's polite.
Like during the course of the show, they've probably released 2 or 3 libraries.
Exactly.
But I don't think they've ever sat down and said, man, that was a great UI we just shipped. The UIs tend to be really problematic. So I had this love-hate affair with the Adagio strings, which I think sound gorgeous, but feel kind of buggy and weird and unpredictable. So they sent an email to registered owners saying, hey, we think Adagio is kind of buggy and unpredictable. I'm paraphrasing slightly, but guess what? We redid this whole library. We gave it a brand new UI. It's going to be great. We're combining the Adagio and the agitato together. We're making kind of a greatest hits with a totally new interface. And the more of the old libraries you have, the cheaper it is to upgrade. So I did a little math, much like you, and I calculated that if I just buy the agitato library, I would be able to get the new anthology for free. And that would be cheaper than not buying agitato and then doing the upgrade. So I'm eagerly awaiting the promised anthology where they're going to take some of my favorite strings and make them less like torture.
So if I am to understand, the agitato, which you scolded me for buying because you didn't recommend it, you ended up actually buying it yourself so that you could get a cheaper discount on anthology.
Right. I'm going to get the anthology for free because I have the right combination of products to do that.
But you recommended that I didn't get agitato.
Not unless you're going to use that as a stepping stone for the anthology set, because I think the Adagio strings are the real jewels of the crown.
Yeah, I'm just teasing you. I'm just trying to get one in. What else did you get?
Let's see. I got Dorico.
Dorico.
You got to do a whole show on that.
I definitely could. I've only got initial impressions right now. They're all positive, but I'm just dipping my toes into those waters. But if you have Sibelius, which at this point is now dead to me emotionally, you can physically, you can cross-grade to Dorico for very low rate. I think it's half price or maybe even better than half price. So if you're thinking about Dorico and balked at the price, check out the cross-grade.
Uh-oh, Vince is
So
trying
what
to
should I
prevail.
do with this box? Should I just throw it at Steinberg and they'll just magically give me something cool and awesome?
Yeah, I mean, you need to. I think you need to email the evidence of ownership, but that as long as you do that, you can get a. I forget the price, but it's really favorable. So far, Dorico seems different in a really cool way, and I look forward to giving you more impressions about that in future episodes.
You know, every time I hear Dorico, my 12-year-old snickers. Any chance of a better name on the next release?
You'll have to address that to our former Sibelius folks now at Steinberg, but
What is a
they've always had like a fetish for historical engraving trivia. So I think the fact that they picked some influential yet unheard of engraver from Renaissance Italy, I think that was probably a very deliberate choice.
Oh, gotcha.
Other
By
than
the
that,
way, what I should have gotten for Black Friday sale is, as you can see across the top, is some crown molding for my room. Because look at all those horrible paint lines. Another reason I need to change this model, this monitor. So what else do you get, Mike?
beyond that, all I got was this isn't extremely exciting, but I upgraded Era Medieval Legends to Era Medieval Legends 2. They had a Black Friday upgrade discount on that.
Dang it, I didn't know that. That's another one. I got 14 then.
And what else? Oh, and our friends, I say that metaphorically, not literally, our friends at Plugin Alliance had a really good sale on the Vertigo VSC2 compressor, which so many people have been raving about, including Alex.
Yep.
And at the moment, I didn't really have a favorite bus compressor, so I thought, well, it's such a cheap buy, I might as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I got the privilege of working with at AES. I volunteered to help out at Greg Worth's booth, and he partnered with Andy, who's the guy who created the Vertigo stuff. And so it was amazing to be able to get my hands on the hardware and to hear it. And so I snagged those softwares as well. So in the chat, we have one of my absolute favorite libraries. I guess this makes now 14, is the Conservatoire collection. I love that. Matt Miller picked that up. Mike, you were tempted, but you didn't get it, it says. That's a fantastic library.
I'm a big fan of Sonic Couture. I love everything of theirs that I have.
Yep. And then Matt Miller says that back in the day, I just want to get through some of these chats. You know, our chatties are so important, and I apologize for we had so much topics today. I want to make sure we go through this. But back in the day, they would mold the RE20 on the headset of for Broadway musicals. That's a giant microphone. I'm sure he means some small thing, but you know, the RE20 is interesting. It's more like gunmetal gray. I've actually never been near one. This is my first ever exposure to the RE20, other than seeing it in video. Like a lot of Radiohead videos, you see it because Tom York sings pretty regularly through an RE20. But it's like a gunmetal gray, and I always thought it was a taupe kind of color. Yes, I said taupe. So Matt Miller says the new Spitfire Symphony strings. Spitfire did some new stuff.
Ooh. Is that new actually?
Well, I don't know, but maybe it was on a sale for sorry about that.
Spitfire, the symphonic strings, yeah. I think that's been out for a bit.
Yeah, I do like this. Matt Miller says, "If you fall in love with their stuff." I'll tell you what. At AES,
Spitfire is great.
The Spitfire booth, or maybe it was NAMM last year. Hey guys, you ready for NAMM? I'm super stoked. That's coming up next month.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it was NAMM last year, but when you went by the Spitfire booth, they were using those Focal speakers, and in all of that loudness, you could clearly hear the music to the screen that they were playing. The Focals did a fantastic job of playing their music, and of course their library sounded fantastic. What else we got in the chat room? Anything caught your guys' eye that you wanted to bring up?
See, there was a question about mixing strings. There's a dude that is Bop Till You Flop is tantalizing me with his modeled instrument that I may or may not be testing once it gets around to being developed.
Ooh.
Matt Miller just picked up PSP AudioWare's Old Timer for $30, and it sounds terrific.
PSP has never gotten my money. What's up with that? Am I
Wait a minute, really?
Yeah. Am I failing?
Hmm.
They've never
No,
been.
just
I
need-
mean, I've certainly
need-
heard
we
of
need
them, but
Alex
they
back.
we
We
talk
need
about them a lot
Alex
on the
back.
show. What'd you say?
We need Alex back.
Yeah,
He's
Alex loves
he's
them.
a great proponent of PSP stuff.
I think it's a good example of liking what you're into, though. You know, like I was just talking about UAD stuff today, and the fact that I'm not a big fan UAD.
Hmm.
For instance, I saw today that with their Apollos, which are only Thunderbolt, is that what it's called? Thunderbolt?
Oh yeah,
They don't even give you a Thunderbolt cable. And shame on
Thunderbolt
you.
cables are
I'll-
expensive.
I'll look right at you, UAD. You make a shitload of money. Include a Thunderbolt cable. Don't have it-
I understand that Thunderbolt cables are ridiculously expensive. No one includes Thunderbolt cables. No one.
Be a good company and include one and be the difference maker. Because can you imagine going and buying a UAD Apollo at Guitar Center and going, oh my God, I'm so excited to get home and plug this thing in. You get it home and it won't even plug in because they didn't include a Thunderbolt cable. So you now have to carry your happy ass back out to the streets, get yourself a Thunderbolt cable or order one on Amazon and wait a couple of days before you can use it. Inexcusable in my book. And then on top of that, the fact that they try to proprietarize, if that's a word, it is today, you into their software library drives me crazy. People yell about Avid doing that all the time, trying, too expensive, forcing you to use their gear. And then UAD turns around and says, if this is your first interface and you fall for buying their stuff, yes, UAD, I'm talking to you, if you fall for buying their stuff and you commit yourself to their plugins, they won't work anywhere else. You have to have a UAD device to make sure that they work. So even though they're releasing an LA2A, which you can get anywhere, there's 1,000 people making LA2As, 1176, the same things. If you buy theirs, you're tied to their equipment. And then on top of that, they don't include a Thunderbolt cable when you buy a new audio interface. It's just inexcusable to me. It seems like a company who is getting away with bad manners and continuing to do bad manners because they already got away with it. That frustrates me. And so I have to speak up against that. I think that, this is too much. This is too expensive. Companies need to be better to their consumers. Anyway.
Well, that's one more entry for Game Audio Hour's ever-growing list of companies that will never sponsor us.
Fair enough. I'm fine with that one.
We got to balance that out because, there was one deal, which is not really a Black Friday deal because it's still going on for another week or so. There's a massive Impact Soundworks bundle on audio plugin deals.
I got that one too.
Which is really good. It's $99 for 5 libraries. And now I'm doing it too, Kyle. 5 libraries. And they're all really good. The Vocaliza Slavic Women's Choir, the Rhapsody Orchestral Percussion, the Rhapsody Orchestral Colors, so orchestral effects, some Furious Staccato strings and scoring brass, so brass effects. That is a really good deal for $99. I'm just going to paste that into the chat right now.
When have you found it handy to have a Slavic women's choir?
Well, whatever. It's great. Actually, it is, even though it is a Slavic women's choir, it has a very good tone that can be used generally with other choirs or as part of an orchestral texture. So I actually use it quite a bit. It's part of my orchestral template because, it's quick to load in Contact and it's really easy to use. So even if I'm not doing all the interesting syllables and slides and swoops that the Slavic Women's Choir does, so I'm just using the tone, it works great.
All I know is every time I get into a fight in Witcher 3, my ears are assaulted immediately by some chick chanting in like 90 dB above the ambient sound level. And because Witcher 3 just recycles the same combat music over and over again, I've almost got this Pavlovian response that like, I want to kill that demon, but then that woman's going to start chanting in my ear again. Maybe I should stop playing this game with headphones. I don't know. So
adding to the list of games that won't endorse our show.
I do like Witcher 3. It is a
But
fun
I am going to add one more thing for UAD.
Man.
The other thing, I know, Vince, you tried to get me all this. He's like, Kyle, I'm trying to help you. Is, by the way, when you buy the new Apollo, if you're into it, buy it. if that's what you like, please do. If you buy the Apollo right now, you get their satellite, UAD satellite, for free. But here's the twist. They don't send it to you. You have to register your Apollo before December 31st. If you fail to, they're not going to send it to you. That's bad. You should have just sent it. You knew you were giving them away. You should send it with the Apollo instead of hedging your bets and saying people are probably going to forget. And then that way we cannot give away the free thing that we said we were going to get, but still benefit from the sale that we talked them into. So there you go. That's strike 3 for me at UAD. So in the chat room, my God, there's so much going on in here. Any tips for advice on mixing virtual strings, says Adriana. What do you guys got?
Let's see. I put some stuff there in the chat. I think one of the things that I realized that I do is that I'll do separate EQs on all of my sections of strings. And this is actually mostly based on the fact that one of the most popular microphones for recording orchestra is the good old Neumann M50. And it's one of those microphones that you can't really quite put into a category because at some frequencies it's omnidirectional, and at some frequencies it's actually very cardioid, if not hypercardioid.
Oh, I didn't know.
And because of that, I was like, well, why don't I just start, just changing up my EQ based on how much in front of the conductor it is, compared to other things. So, your bass is off to the side, your violin ones, your violas and cellos up there. And really changing my EQ based on where they are instead of just resorting to the placement in the space. And I found that that's actually a really nice way to get that texture of sound that you really want.
That's a great tip. Sorry, guys, getting a text. Mike, what do you got? What's your hot tip for mixing virtual strings?
I don't know if I have a lot of mixing tips per se, unless I'm compensating for the oddities of a particular library or a particular sound, and especially if I'm working within a given library, they should. I mean, I feel like compositionally and arranging wise is where the battle is for clarity and balance. There shouldn't be a whole lot you have to do, other than tasteful reverb selection. And a little bit of EQ if you want to bring out the highs here or there. But if you're doing a ton of like under the hood stuff on your strings, ask yourself why.
That's a good piece.
Oh.
Yeah. Did you guys mention getting rid of some of the mic placements when you want to get intense? Like I'll get rid of the room mics when I want to bring something in. I'll get just stage.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah. There's definitely a time for your big mix mics and your room mics. And most of the time I actually stick with my close mics because I do tend to mix with a lot of physical modeling type instruments. So my big string libraries, even though they do have the nice sounding room mics, I stick with the close mic so that it sound much more together with things like sample modeling that I enjoy using.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because of blend. Yeah, I write with the stage mics, and then when I'm finished, and after Mike has saved my butt, I will start to do a bunch of switching between, even at kind of a note level, if you will. I'll try to get really close on some big hit and then pull away on some more open, emotive stuff.
Do you ever automate your mic selection?
No. I guess, no, I just load up the different. So I've got close, stage, and room, and then I just mute the ones that I want to use. But yeah, automating would be better. Can you do, how do you do that?
I think you can.
What is CC number on automating the mics?
Well, well, if it's a contact library, I'm just right-clicking on, say, my room mics and my stage mics and learn MIDI CC automation. Yeah, I've never done that, but maybe I'll experiment with that because I think I've got a cue that needs to be worked on where I could benefit from that.
Mike knows all about mics. Look what he did. He's all about mics.
I will say that you both are bringing up a good point, is be aware of the different mic perspectives that are included in whatever library you're using. It's very easy to just set up room mics or whatever the default is and just kind of forget that there's anything else. but sometimes it can make a pretty profound timbral difference in the sound of the instrument. Anecdotally, for some reason, Hollywood woodwinds, the default mic is actually not the room mic, but the mid mics, which I think sound kind of unpleasant. And when I started using that library, I was really bummed out because I'm a fan of the Hollywood series. And I thought, why does everything sound bad? And then I realized it's because I just didn't care for that particular mic. But when I opened up the interface and said, wow, I've got all these choices, and I found I could just change over to the room mics and it sounded great all of a sudden. So
Nice.
Kyle was pointing out some interesting ideas. You can change mic perspectives, perhaps, to make a dramatic emphasis. But you may effectively have like 2 or 3 really different variations of every string sound or whatever kind of sound you're using, just based on different mic selection.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Very kind. So as I complain about UAD, Adriano says I spent way too much money on UAD plug. Sorry, Adriano. Personal opinion, not a representative of the show. Matt Miller says that the JC120 is a big amp for West African guitar players, and of course Adrian Ballou and Robert Fripp. Robert Fripp being the greatest guitar player that ever lived. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, but I would like to tell you more about Robert
And on
Fripp.
that note, it is about time. It's 7:14. I think we did more than a solid hour of our game audio hour.
All right, whatever. So if we didn't get to your conversation in the chat, I'm very sorry. I got all wrapped up in the show and had a blast. Chatties, thanks for participating. Thanks for always being part of the show. Guys, thanks for being on the show as usual. Not even on the show, being the show. Because if it wasn't for you two, people would have to look at my ugly mug all the time. And I will fix this this screen situation. I don't know. I got to figure that out. I need a video card that has 3 HDMI and 1 ADC that runs in a Mac Pro from early 2009. But I'll tell you what, I've sucked the life out of this thing. I got to give people some advice. Load it up with hard drives, maximize the memory, and get one of these accelerator cards. I got this from Otherworld Computing. It is a card that goes into the actual the bus. Gosh darn it. I'm losing the terminology. You know how you're basically your hard drives plug into a card and the card plugs into your mother drive, your motherboard,
yeah.
excuse me. And so I skipped that. I went with a card that goes right straight into the motherboard. And the increase in speed, my read-write speed on my hard drives before was about 100 megabits per second. It's in bits, not bytes, right? That they measure these things. And once I put the card in, I'm at 600, almost 700 for read-write speed.
Oh yeah, that I think you do in fact mean megabytes per second, because those ones that are directly into the motherboard, those things get really fast.
This thing's hauling ass. It's like having I'm not going to be foolish and say it's like having a brand new computer. It's not that to that point, but it is so much faster that I've probably got another 2 or 3 years out of this computer before I have to go with a trash can. So I'm really happy with that purchase. So check into those if you got so max memory, max hard drives. Get one of these SSDs, and I got a 1 terabyte. I threw it on my C drive basically, and I do all the work there, and then I store everything out on other drives. It's super fast, really, really well done. So thank you for being part of the show. That was the last bit of advice I wanted to pass on. Hope the RE20 sounds good. I'll see you guys next week, at which time we're going to talk about Dorco, right?
Yeah, let's dork out about Dorco.
Oh, you beat me to it. I wanted to do that so badly. I was setting it up and everything.
We have our
Thank
show
you, Kyle.
title.
Well done. All right, guys. And the contest is next week. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Right.
We love you.